It goes without saying that this year has been marked by some surprising commercial successes and failures. From Marvel's attempt to course correct the MCU to the surprise breakout success of Sinners, things are changing in Hollywood. But what lessons are they learning? And by extension, what are we learning as storytellers? Let's talk about it. Before we get into that, though, here's a reminder to check out dcferguson.com for all of my latest videos, overviews of my books, exclusive behind-the-scenes content for each of my series, and you can sign up for my newsletter. I should also mention that you'd help me out in a big way if you like this video, subscribe, and share it with any friends that also enjoy the art of storytelling. I guess the first most obvious question would be, why am I addressing this topic at all? While the master of Kung Fu and friendship usually keeps his head down and focuses on the storytelling and world-building aspects of the craft, I occasionally dip into the business, cultural, and very rarely the political. I have many reasons for that, but why I'd want to talk about this today is because it directly affects our perception of what constitutes good storytelling in media. The short version is, if the younger generation has their stories to tell, they'd be wise to understand the skewed lens they're seeing films in 2025. The first most important lesson today is to understand that commercial success does not equal good storytelling. As a matter of fact, the opposite is often true, as films with mass appeal have to be digestible by the lowest common denominator of audiences. That's the same as judging the best cooks in a neighborhood by how many raccoons eat out of their garbage. If you're an effective storyteller, you're constantly being critical of your own tales long before any other eyes get to see it. Now, I could go for some of the low-hanging fruit that we've discussed before, like how multiple people looked at the premise, the script, and the performances for films like Madame Web, The New War of the Worlds, and Novocaine, and they said, yeah, let's spend $10 million on this. But we're not going for low-hanging fruit today. These were brain-dead ideas with poor writing, and they were acted poorly as a result. They deserve every bit of hate that they get, but bad writing like this teaches us very little. Instead, let's show what I mean by criticality. See, if I can be critical of something I truly love, then you can imagine how hard I am on myself and my own work. I wouldn't say that I'm an exemplar, but I'd recommend, if you truly want to be a storyteller of any kind, check your ego at the door and adopt at least some of what I'm saying here. To that end, let's look at the film Sinners, which is absolutely my favorite movie I've seen so far this year. It was great. I have very few notes, but I do have some. This film is set in post-World War I in the South, as two twin brothers of questionable backgrounds return to their hometown to open a speakeasy. Michael B. Jordan does double duty playing both brothers in the film, which is unique in and of itself. It touches on the political without messaging directly, it touches on the religious without being preachy, and it packs a lot of drama and comedy into what is essentially a horror film. Honestly, I loved everything about this movie. The sets, the atmosphere, the blues, the early 20th century setting, all of it. That said, this is almost literally a carbon copy of the 1996 film From Dusk Till Dawn, where two fugitive brothers take a family hostage to get them across the border to Mexico, and they spend a night in a bar where bad stuff happens. I mean, the plot is so similar, it would be embarrassing if this film wasn't done so well. The fact of the matter is, the original idea of From Dusk Till Dawn is so good that another storyteller can come along and play with a few key beats of the plot and turn out a surprise hit to kick off the summer. That says more about the former than the latter. On the opposite end of the spectrum, we have recent MCU offerings of Thunderbolts and the Fantastic Four. I've already discussed the incredibly unique storytelling devices used in Thunderbolts. You can check that video out. This film was unique, well-written, and enjoyable. The Fantastic Four was more of the same, an enjoyable film with a unique twist to this alternate Earth with everything as a 1960s future world aesthetic. The story avoided being an origin story, instead opting to assume the audience was already familiar with the characters and use that to load up on Easter eggs that fans could spot from as far back as their original 1963 comic debut. So I'm heaping praise here, but what happened? Commercially, they fell way short of expectations. The problem is, audience expectations have been in the toilet for the last few years, and people got tired of getting burned. The fact that it made money at all is a testament to the staying power of the MCU. Ironically, Fantastic Four earned close to what the first Iron Man movie did. Marvel and Disney are just going to have to get used to putting out great stories for less returns until they build that fan base back up again. I mean, just because these films didn't make $1 billion, tossing around the word flop seems a bit over the top. But that's what my young storytellers out here are seeing, and it's easy to take the wrong message from news like that. I promise you, someone at Disney saw the returns on Fantastic Four and had an absolute freak out because it didn't do Avengers Endgame numbers. They got a bunch of people into a room and started asking what went wrong, like an autopsy or something. Good stories will get good word of mouth, and in time, the audience will come back. Or they won't. Billion-dollar movies used to be exceptionally rare for a reason. Getting an overwhelming majority of people in the USA to agree on anything is a big ask. It takes something special to make that happen. The confusion between critical acclaim and actual quality is pretty apparent if you look at the film The Substance. You might or might not be aware, but a few months back I dissected this film here on the channel. It was my most viewed movie to date, and as you can see, it's also my most controversial. I'm going to go ahead and double down on what I said, and I stand by that video. The Substance was cartoonish, nonsensical, and idiotic. The film thinks it's making a very big statement on the way that older women are discarded in Hollywood, but the analysis is so shallow, and the movie actually manages to make a compelling case against what I think it's actually preaching for. Again, the movie was nonsensical. I'm not sure the writer even knew what she was trying to say. I bring that up to say this. If you were going by critics, it was brilliant. If you're going by audience scores, it was a C at best, and if you're going by my comments section, I'm the devil and didn't understand it. A bold claim from perfect strangers, but welcome to the internet in 2025. The point is, depending on where you heard about the film, the takes on it were drastically different, and it would be easy to assume critical acclaim equals good storytelling. If you scratch the surface of these critics' reviews, though, you start noticing something that tells a very different story than its 89% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. The vast majority of positive reviews call it the best film of 2024 without explaining why. The words body horror, feminist, and society appear in an overwhelming number of reviews. Also, those same positive reviews were individually giving out 3.5 ratings, C+ scores, and oddly giving 4 out of 5 stars with extremely critical takes on how long the film was, how shallow its point was, and how detached the script was from reality. So, the same things that people like myself said was a reason it was a bad piece of storytelling are the same flaws that are overlooked in an otherwise positive review. When I see something like that, my alarm bells start going off. It's similar to a friend or a family member looking at something you created and telling you that they're glad to see you working on something, or reviewing it with a practice makes perfect reply. You get the feeling right away that they're being positive without lying and saying they liked it. Understanding film critics, and even audience reviews, is as much a critical part of the storytelling process as anything else. Yeah, your buddy Joey heard your story idea and thinks you're going to make $1 million, but you also once saw Joey drink paint water. My point is, consider the source when looking at feedback and critique. It is so important to develop your own internal ability to be critical before looking for external validation. So, how do we cut through that noise and learn to be critical? The order looks something like this. First, be critical of your story. Look for plot holes, continuity errors, characters that each have their own voice. Second, be critical of your world. Make sure it makes sense and that it feels lived in. Stories are great, but if the world they take place in is just a backdrop, it feels flat. Third, be critical of your work when it gets reviewed. I've said it 100 times. I learned nothing from a 5-star or a 1-star review. But a 4-star review that loved it except for this one little thing, that gets me every time. I'll scour through my own work to see if I can see what they see. Are they right, or do I stand by my work? Fourth, and this goes hand in hand with the last one, is to be critical of your critics. The 1-stars want to tear you down and be destructive. That's not useful to you. The 5-stars adore you. You can't trust them to be truly critical of you. But those 4, 3, and 2-star folks, a lot of them have valid points, as I mentioned, but some of them may not have understood your work. They weren't fans of your genre, they don't appreciate your voice or style, all things you have no control over. But it's a free country and those people get to say what they want. That works great for us happy few that watch every episode I post and find my little video essays useful, but how does that help us in our everyday lives trying to assess blockbuster films? Well, for that, I'd direct our attention back to Fantastic Four First Steps. Let's apply my little 4-step process at the film to understand my take and how I assess the movie. First is the story itself. Keeping in mind that I liked this movie quite a bit, let's do what I said and be critical. The film tries to introduce us to an alternate Earth and bring us up to speed on that. It tries to give us a team that is several years into their superheroing and bring us up to speed on that. Then we jump through the drama of the female lead being pregnant to having the baby by the halfway mark, and we need to introduce an existential threat to their world by this cosmic force. On paper and in practice, the story is doing too much. When we do that, everything suffers. We see a family that loves each other, but we never get to see what binds them together. We see a herald of a great evil as our sympathetic guardian that can be turned to the light, but she's only explored enough to tell us that, which is far more than we get from our big bad Galactus. So it's a domino effect, with each part of the story getting less time. What about the world? Well, retro-futuristic is a word that I haven't heard much except for maybe the Fallout games. And here we are, a stunning example of a simpler time with technology that would be alien even to us. I love it, honestly. I have very few notes, except that I would have liked the world to have more examples of it. If Mr. Fantastic has a flying car and a robot, surely some of this technology is available to your average person, right? The point is, don't give me the world of the Jetsons if only one guy gets to have all the cool toys. Again, this is me being really critical here of something I actually enjoyed. Third, let's be critical of the film as told by critics. Critics say the pacing of the film was slow. So, was it? Well, when you have this much narrative heavy lifting to do and you're not allowed the grace of an origin story, you can't have things exploding every 5 minutes. This was definitely a pick one scenario here. You either wanted a great story with the slow burn of an existential threat, or you wanted 2 hours of flying monkeys to battle during a car chase. You can't have both. I think for what it was trying to do, I'd stand with Marvel on this one. Galactus isn't a non-stop action story. If you're tackling this particular villain, by the time he makes it to Earth, you're already screwed. By that nature, the story has to be a slow burn. Lastly, let's be critical of the critics. So, there aren't many negative reviews, but the ones you can find point to the slow burn as boring, while others critique the third act action scenes as a return to CGI skyscrapers go boom. That goes right back to my point. You can't please these people. Some hated the slow burn because it wasn't an action movie, while others didn't like the world-ending action scenes that suit a superhero movie. In both cases, it sounds like these movies just aren't their cup of tea, and that's fine. It's also a free country, so they're allowed to do reviews for the kind of films they don't enjoy and then dump all over them. But we can see it for what it is. Both audiences and critics that did see it overwhelmingly enjoyed it. But it also didn't make $1 bajillion. Neither did No Country for Old Men, or Gone Girl, or the wildly successful and well-reviewed movie Sinners, all of them absolutely stunning films. You see how this works? By using a systematic layer of critique, we can be honest about what works that we like and also be objective about how the story was received by others. If we can do that, then we know how our own stories can be placed under the microscope in the same way and not have it crippling our ego. We don't want to be crying in the shower. We want to be better at our craft. And critical acclaim and box office returns do not mean that we've made a great story. So, before you take the wrong lesson from what media tells you is a flop, or trying to navigate what constitutes good stories in the modern landscape, learn to be critical. Be critical of your story, your world, and then the people telling you what is good and bad. I get so nervous when I sit through so many movies a year. I fear for the future, that all these horrendous missteps in storytelling are influencing our younger generation, or skewing their understanding of what constitutes great work. I know how much I've been inspired by the works that came out in my life. I couldn't imagine needing to go back to silent films or black and white movies just to find some worthwhile storytelling. The landscape is rough out here, but we're trying, right? Tastemakers and big marketing budgets can't stop an educated audience from seeing right through it. Don't forget to check out my new website, the link's in the description below. You'll also find a link to my newsletter in the comments where you can get a free book, read about all of my latest projects, and find other indie authors for your next great read. Don't forget to like and subscribe to hear about new videos, and as always, have fun and get crafting.